I want to give you some examples. I got a letter. This is why, another reason this is so serious, and yet not serious. And then I'll take your questions. So, I got a letter from a man who is, I guess he's in his, I would estimate his 50s, late 50s now. And he has heard me on the radio show, on my radio show, and he's seen me on TV and stuff like that. So he wrote me a letter looking for help. He wanted me to see if I can help him. And here is a portion of the letter. In his letter, he said, I don't belong here. No one that belongs here will have this much pain for this long. It's not logical, is it? And then in the letter he said, I need to kill myself and put myself out of this. I need to kill myself and put myself out of this effing misery. Misery. And then he said in his letter, who hexed me and made me unable to do what needs to be done? That was just a portion of his letter. And so I gave the guy a call and told him I got his letter. And I talked about forgiveness first. I asked, well, what are you so mad about, Because in unforgiveness, if you have any iota of anger, you're never, ever, ever going to know what I'm talking about. You're never going to know the freedom of living outside of the imagination and inside the consciousness of God. You're never going to know it. If you have one little iota of unforgiveness in your heart, and you can't fight unforgiveness, you can't fight anger, you can't control anger, you have to let it go. Either you have it or you don't have it. Otherwise, you never know what I'm talking about. So I asked him, what are you angry about? I read your letter, and all I heard was anger. And he told me what he was angry about. He's been angry since a kid, has not been able to let it go, tried to control it, but it didn't work. I told him, well, it's a spirit, you can't control it. And then I talked to him about as long as you live in your anger, you're going to listen to the darkness of thoughts. You can't believe the truth. Because anger disconnects you from the source, which is God that gives love. So as long as you have the anger, it's going to control you. And the thing about it, most limiting thoughts is just something we are used to doing. It's like a habit. It's not real, it's a habit. It's like, how I used to smoke marijuana? Anybody else smoke marijuana? Well, we got a store right down the road here. You can get it free now. Well, we don't have a store, but there's a store right down the road. And I remember I had tried to get off marijuana. This is before God caused me to forgive, right? And I wanted to get off this stuff, but I couldn't. And what would happen, I would go like the whole day without doing it. And at 6 o'clock in the evening or 7 o'clock, that urge would just come. And the urge for marijuana didn't come, but the reality of not being anything or feeling like anybody or feeling important came. The ego would come. And it would make me feel unimportant. And then I would start rambling in my head about poor me, life is, I ain't nobody, and nobody love me, and I don't love nobody. I would start feeling that way, and then I would smoke the marijuana, and life came back. I'm like, yeah, I feel like fine now. Kick back, get some food, watch TV, all is well. But the next morning, reality was back. But when I forgave, when God caused me to forgive, the marijuana just vanished away. It was like it just went away because another reality started to set in. And that's the way life works too. When you forgive, all your old habits would just vanish. You don't have to try to get over them. After I talked to this guy maybe about 30 minutes to 40 minutes. When our conversation was over, he was an absolute free man, just free, because he did not understand the connection between unforgiveness and this thought thing that we have. He didn't know that the thoughts were not real, and just out of habit, we kind of went in there as kids because we become so traumatized. And that man could not stop thinking me. And he promised to do everything I need done. Oh, whatever you need, let me know, let me know, let me know. And it's so sad that you spend a lifetime unnecessarily suffering and living this lie and believing this lie and trying to control the imagination. You cannot control it at all. And it's all, what's so interesting is just a lie. It doesn't tell you the truth about anything. And it doesn't come up with any new ideas. It works on whatever you have already done. It'll just remind you of it. And then you'll believe it and repeat it, or try not to repeat it, but repeat something else that's the same thing. It has no new information. There's no life given in it or anything. And this is not the way we should be living. And we don't have to. There's another reality right here and now, but you got to let this go. You really can live a life of being thought free. And when you start to taste this life, you're going to see what I'm talking about. And the more you see it, the more you're going to want of it, and the more you will be willing to let it go. The Bible says, so is a man thinking, so is he is. If you think you're no good, you ain't no good. If you think you're crazy, you're crazy. If you think you're sick and out of it, you're sick. God said all things are possible when you're connected to him. And all things mean all things. There's not one thing that is impossible when you're connected to him. Isn't that amazing? There's not one thing that's impossible. But up here, the possibilities seem impossible or tough or hard to get or whatever. You have doubt about it. You gotta let the imagination go. And you don't have to live that way. There's a voiceless voice that should be guiding us. You can let this thing go. It's just a habit. It's like overeating or drinking or whatever. And I know people are taking medication to try to control it. Big mistake. You can't control it with medication. Medication just dumb you down so that it causes you to drop in consciousness to fall away from the mind of God when they give you antidepressant and all that kind of garbage. So you got to let thoughts go. How's that? How does that sound? Does it sound believable?
Yes.
It does, huh? It is. I'm telling you, I'm like not a smart guy. But I love seeking first the kingdom of God in his right way. If God said that I'm his son and that he loved me and that all things are possible for those who believe in him, then that must be. If he said, I sent Christ to make you free, then I must be free. Where is that freedom? If he said, don't worry about anything, don't think about what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear, who you're going to hang out with, what big house you're going to make next, I'll provide it for you, then that must be true. Where is that? How do I get there? And once you start focusing on knowing yourself and seeking him first, then you'll see what I'm talking about. There's nothing more important than coming back to your original state of being. You know? You see the animals running around, you don't see them worried about anything. They worry about nothing, yet they're taken care of. Isn't that amazing? And we are created in his image. This thing convinced us that even as we are in his image, we still got to worry and trip out and hate one another and talk about people and all this garbage. Get rid of that mind. There's no reason at all to be thinking. The mind is a terrible thing to save. Isn't that amazing? I know in the black colleges there are a slogan they have. The mind is a terrible thing to waste. Remember that? I say the mind is a terrible thing to save. Let the mind go so you can be guided by the voice of God. And the way I'll get into the way you let it go in a minute here. But in this letter was horrible, huh? And all it took was to shine some light on this for this man, and he was made to be free. And just a little light shine on this. And this guy is a Christian, according to him. He's been going to church all of his life. And he has everything. The guy told me he's wealthy, he's done well in business, but yet he doesn't feel like anything is happening. He still feels lost. He want to commit suicide. I need to kill myself and put myself out of this effing misery. Anybody else felt that way? I have. Yeah. And that's the mind convincing you of that you need to kill yourself. And then when you kill yourself and you're going through the light, wherever this tunnel that folks talk about all the time, and your whole world flashes before you, and you be like, wow, I didn't know it was that way, but it's too late now, I guess. But interesting. Yes, ma'am. I want to go to, yeah.
I never wished I killed myself. I always wished I was never born. Like, so,
Yeah.
Like that concept.
And why did you wish that?
It's just like that guy said, like just life seemed like just miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But life is not miserable. Life is great. It really, really is. Mm. But in an illusion of imagination, it makes it seem to be miserable. You believe that, and then you go act it out, and it's over.
Yeah.
You had your hand up
Yes,
early.
I was wondering when you said you were listening to Francisco talk and you didn't have any thoughts. Like when he got through talking, do you remember anything he says, or
yes.
does it? Oh, you do?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
It stayed with me.
Oh, okay.
The important stuff that he said stayed with me.
Oh, okay.
But the rest of the stuff went away.
So you were just like in the moment, like you're just aware and just listening.
And what I was doing is I was observing those thoughts, because don't try to control them. You cannot control them. You have to observe them. And you know how thoughts tell you, it says all kind of weird stuff. Oh, I need to remember this, or he's wrong about that. He's right about this. You know, all that stuff. Just let that go so you can stay conscious. And because what it does when it's talking to you while a person is speaking to you, it really set you up to judge the person. Mm-hmm. And so you miss the point.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're busy judging. You're not in the moment listening to the truth of what's being said. Yeah. But you're judging, well, he said that, that's wrong. Oh yeah, he said that, that's right. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Why don't you shut up? I used to listen to Frankie, and Frankie loved to talk. His folks are like that too. If you don't want to be talked to, don't go to a party at his mama's house. They all can just talk and loud and won't let you in. But when I listened, I learned he said some good stuff. I got that, it stayed with me, but I cannot remember what that was right now. But it's there. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, like, people that have amnesia, are they better off?
That's a good question. No. And you know why? Because I believe that people who have amnesia is in a fallen state of consciousness. I think their mind just drove them nuts. And because the mind can pile on in such a way that you'll just clock out. And I believe that that's what's going on now. I haven't been able to prove that yet. But I was talking to a friend of mine over the weekend, over the holiday, about my father having Alzheimer's. And sometimes he's mean, and then sometimes he is nice. And you can see him going in and out of meanness and niceness. He goes in and out of remembering things and not remembering things. And I was telling this friend of mine about that, so he was telling me that his mother is the same way. She has the same thing, and she's just mean, but you can see her going in and out of it. And he said that I believe it's a fallen state of consciousness. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Because how come sometimes he can be aware, sometimes he is not? We all have a form of that when we listen to thoughts. You notice how sometimes you can be real, real mean. Anybody here been mean before to someone else? Yeah, see that, everybody. And then sometimes you can be so nice, You notice that? Because you're in and out of consciousness. That's what it is. When you drop in your thought, you don't like nobody, and you don't, especially if you think that person is whatever you think about them. But when you're conscious, you love everybody all the time. All the time. And you correct them and all that, but you have nothing but love for them. So I think that's what happens. They're just falling in and out of that consciousness. And they've gotten old and just never were able to conquer that. And so I would not want to get old, lost in my head. It just seems too dangerous to get old. Because at my age now, had I not fallen into it or gotten over it early, I think I'd already be free from it. But I'm growing into freedom away from it. And kids don't have that when they're first born. When they're young, they're not in an unconscious state. They can see everything as it is and speak to the issue straight up until you pass your anger on to them and traumatize them. And then they start to fall away from consciousness because they're becoming angry. And they end up the way we are. Isn't that something?
Yes.
Absolutely something.